The Demon-Haunted World, Science as a Candle in the Dark, by Carl Sagan. Introduction. Imagine for a moment that you're one of the most celebrated scientists on the planet. You've dedicated your life to exploring the cosmos, to understanding the vast, beautiful, and sometimes terrifying universe we live in. You've just gotten off a plane, on your way to a conference, and a driver is there to meet you, holding a little cardboard sign with your name on it. As you wait for your luggage, he turns to you, a little sheepishly, and asks, "Isn't it confusing to have the same name as that scientist guy?" You pause for a moment, trying to understand. And then it hits you. He thinks you're an imposter. "I am that scientist guy," you reply. The driver smiles, embarrassed, and as you get into the car for the long drive, he tells you how excited he is. He has so many questions to ask you about science. You settle in, ready to talk about the stars, about the origins of life, about the great mysteries of the universe. But that's not what he wants to talk about. He wants to talk about frozen alien bodies in an Air Force base. He wants to talk about hearing the voices of the dead, about the prophecies of Nostradamus, about Atlantis, the lost continent at the bottom of the ocean. With every topic, you have to disappoint him, explaining gently that the evidence just isn't there, that there's a much simpler explanation. And as you drive through the rain, you can see his excitement drain away. You realize you're not just debunking a few silly ideas, you're dismantling a core part of his inner world. This man wasn't unintelligent. He was curious, he was eager to learn, and he had a natural hunger for the wonders of the universe. But the world had failed him. Our culture, our schools, our media had filtered out all the real science and left him with nothing but cheap imitations. He was a man, as the great astronomer Carl Sagan would say, living in a demon-haunted world. This true story, from Sagan's own life, is the heart of his masterpiece, The Demon-Haunted World, Science as a Candle in the Dark. This book, which has sold millions of copies and has become a kind of Bible for critical thinkers, isn't just about debunking UFOs or ghosts. It's about something much deeper. It's a defense of our most precious tool for survival, our ability to think clearly. Sagan, with his warm, wise, and deeply human voice, makes a powerful promise that by the end of his book, you will be armed with what he calls a Bologna detection kit, a set of mental tools that will allow you to navigate a world filled with misinformation, to tell the difference between what feels good and what's actually true. And in the next hour, I'm going to share those tools with you. We're going to explore the haunted corners of the human mind, from alien abductions to witch hunts, and we're going to discover why the truth, as revealed by science, is far more magnificent, far more wondrous, than any myth we could ever invent. This isn't just a book summary, it's an inheritance of wisdom from one of the greatest minds of our time. So, let's begin our journey, and light a candle in the dark. Book summary. To understand the heart of Carl Sagan's message, we have to go back to his childhood, to a single, pivotal year, 1939. He was just a boy, living in an apartment in Brooklyn, gazing out over the choppy waters of the Atlantic. His parents were not scientists, they knew almost nothing about the subject. But they gave him two gifts that would shape his entire life, two gifts that lie at the core of the scientific method itself. The first gift was wonder. His father would patiently explain the magic of numbers, how you could always add one more and never reach the end. He took young Carl to the 1939 New York World's Fair, a shining vision of a future built by science. There, Carl saw exhibits where you could see sound as a beautiful wave on a screen, and hear light as a crackle of static from a speaker. The world, he realized, was filled with wonders he had never guessed. How could light become a noise? How could a tone become a picture? It filled him with a sense of awe, a desire to understand the grandeur of the universe. When he announced he wanted to become an astronomer, his parents, who barely knew what an astronomer did, gave him their complete support. But they gave him a second, equally important gift: skepticism. One evening, his mother pointed out across the ocean and told him, "There are people fighting out there, killing each other." The Second World War had begun. The young Carl squinted, trying to see the tiny figures battling on the horizon, just like in his comic books. "I can see them," he insisted. His mother's reply was gentle, but firm. "No, you can't," she said. "They're too far away." This was a profound lesson. How could she know what he could or couldn't see? He wondered. But maybe she was right. Maybe it was just his imagination. And that led to a crucial question: how can you tell when someone is only imagining? How do you separate what you want to be true from what is true? Wonder and skepticism. These two, uneasily cohabiting modes of thought, are the engine of science. Science invites us to be open to the most fantastic possibilities, to be filled with awe at the mysteries of the universe. But at the same time, it demands that we hold our ideas up to the harsh light of evidence. It insists that we test, we question, we doubt. This balance is what so many of us struggle with. We are, as a species, significance junkies. We crave meaning. We see faces in the clouds, patterns in random noise, and conspiracies in coincidence. Our brains are hardwired for it. An infant who can recognize a face and smile back is more likely to win the hearts of its parents and thrive. This pattern recognition machine is a survival tool. But it has a side effect. It makes us see faces where there are none. The most famous example, of course, is the man in the moon. For centuries, cultures all over the world have looked up and seen a face. It's not a very good face. It's lopsided, the ears are missing, and it has a strange, doleful expression. But we see it. It's a characteristic conceit of our species, Sagan says, to put a human face on what is, in reality, a history of random cosmic violence. Those dark patches are ancient lava flows, the result of colossal asteroid impacts billions of years ago. But we prefer the story of a face. This same tendency is what fuels so many of the demons that haunt our world. In 1976, the Viking orbiter spacecraft sent back a photograph from Mars. On a dusty plain called Cydonia, there appeared to be a massive stone face, a kilometer across, staring up at the sky. It looked uncannily human. Immediately, speculation ran wild. Was it a monument left by an ancient Martian civilization? A message for us? Some people claim to see a whole city nearby, with pyramids and temples. They announced that it was built 500,000 years ago, a time when our own ancestors were just mastering fire. How could this be? The story was intoxicating. It was a headline in supermarket tabloids, a subject of endless speculation. NASA was accused of a massive cover-up, hiding the discovery of the millennium from the public. But when we apply the tools of skepticism, the story begins to shallow. We have hundreds of thousands of pictures of Mars. Is it so surprising that in one of them, a trick of light and shadow on a hill might look like a face, especially given our brain's powerful predisposition to find them? When scientists enhanced the original image, they found that the nostril that made it look so face-like was actually just a black dot, a piece of missing data from the radio transmission. And when they used computer processing to see the other half of the face, the part that was in shadow, it looked nothing like a face at all. It was almost certainly just a hill, sculpted by wind and time. But the story of the face on Mars is a powerful cautionary tale. It shows how easily our hopes and fears, our deep human longing for connection, can lead us astray. It shows how we can build a massive, elaborate story on the flimsiest of foundations. This same pattern repeats itself, over and over, in the realm of pseudoscience. Take the strange case of the crop circles. Beginning in the 1970s in England, farmers began discovering intricate geometric patterns in their fields of wheat and barley. At first, they were simple circles. But year by year, they grew more complex, elaborate pictograms the size of football fields. How could they be made? It seemed impossible for them to be a hoax. They appeared overnight, in the dark, with no footprints leading in or out. Experts were called in. Some proposed bizarre whirlwinds or strange electrical phenomena. Others were certain it was aliens, communicating with us in a geometric language. The world's media was captivated. Cereologists, or crop circle experts, authenticated their alien origin. New Age tourists flocked to the sites. The mystery deepened. It was a clear sign, many believed, of a superior intelligence at work. Then, in 1991, two men from Southampton, Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley, confessed. They had been making the crop circles for 15 years. They came up with the idea one night in a pub, thinking it would be fun to spoof the UFO believers. They started with a simple steel bar, then moved on to planks and ropes. They were artists and pranksters, and as the world got more excited, they made their designs more and more complex, just to see what would happen. They were delighted when scientists and experts announced that no mere human could be responsible. They even left clues. They carved a message in the wheat, "Wear a note alone." Many took this as a genuine extraterrestrial message. They signed their work with 2 Ds, for Doug and Dave. This too was attributed to some mysterious alien purpose. When they finally confessed and demonstrated their methods for reporters, you might think the story would be over. But it wasn't. The confession received a fraction of the attention of the original mystery. Many people had heard of the crop circles, but they had never heard of Doug and Dave. The believers insisted that while some circles might be hoaxes, the most complex ones couldn't be. The bamboozle had captured them. As Sagan notes, one of the saddest lessons of history is this: if we've been bamboozled long enough, we tend to reject any evidence of the bamboozle. We're no longer interested in finding out the truth. It's simply too painful to acknowledge that we've been taken. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the strange and disturbing phenomenon of alien abduction. The story is almost always the same. You wake up in the middle of the night, completely paralyzed. You sense a presence in the room. Small, gray beings with large dark eyes stand at the foot of your bed. They float you out of your room, through the walls, and into a waiting spacecraft. There, you are subjected to a cold, clinical medical examination, often with a focus on your reproductive organs. You may be shown hybrid babies, part human, part alien. Finally, you are returned to your bed, with a period of missing time you can't account for. It's a terrifying experience. And millions of people, according to some polls, believe they have had it. What's going on here? Are we in the midst of a massive, secret alien invasion? Or is something else at play? Sagan invites us to look at this phenomenon not as a new mystery, but as a very old one, dressed in modern, scientific clothing. For centuries, people have reported almost identical experiences. The only difference is the name they gave their visitors. In the Middle Ages, they were called incubi and succubi, demons who would visit people in the night, paralyze them, and have sexual intercourse with them. They were perceived as a weight on the chest, which is where the word nightmare comes from. The mare was the demon. These demons could pass through walls and communicate telepathically. Their goal was to create hybrid offspring, part human, part demon. Before that, they were fairies, who would steal babies from their cradles and leave changelings in their place. In other cultures, they were jinn, satyrs, or spirits. The core elements of the story? Paralysis, strange beings in the bedroom, a sense of being transported, and a focus on reproduction, are remarkably consistent across time and culture. What has changed is the cultural costume. When we believed in a world of gods and demons, we hallucinated demons. When we believed in fairies, we saw fairies. And now, in an age of space travel, in a culture saturated with science fiction stories of little green men and bug-eyed monsters, we see aliens. The story adapts to the language of the times. Sagan suggests that many of these experiences can be explained by a common psychological phenomenon called sleep paralysis. It happens in the twilight state between waking and sleeping. You are conscious, but your body is immobile. It is often accompanied by a sense of pressure on the chest, difficulty breathing, and vivid, terrifying hallucinations. It has, as one psychologist put it, the full force and impact of reality. Add to this the power of suggestion. Many abduction memories only surface under hypnosis, a practice that is notoriously unreliable. A hypnotist can, even unintentionally, plant false memories in a suggestible mind. The desire to please the therapist, combined with a few leading questions, can be enough to construct a detailed, emotionally powerful, but entirely false memory. The therapist believes it, the patient believes it, but it never happened outside of the mind. This doesn't mean that people who report these experiences are lying or crazy. The terror they feel is real. The experience is real. The question is it an external reality or an internal one? This is where science becomes indispensable. It offers us a way to distinguish between the two. And it provides us with what Sagan calls the fine art of Bologna detection. This is the central tool of the book, a Bologna detection kit for critical thinking. It's not a set of rigid rules, but a way of approaching the world. It's a habit of mind. And it contains several key tools. First, wherever possible, there must be independent confirmation of the facts. If someone tells you they have a fire-breathing dragon in their garage, you'd want to see it for yourself. But suppose they say, "Oh, it's an invisible dragon." You propose spreading flour on the floor to see its footprints. "Good idea," they say, "but this dragon floats in the air." You suggest an infrared sensor to detect its fiery breath. "Good idea, but its fire is heatless." And so on. At some point, you have to ask, what is the difference between an invisible, floating, heatless dragon and no dragon at all? Claims that cannot be tested, assertions that are immune to disproof, are veridically worthless. Your inability to invalidate a hypothesis is not the same thing as proving it true. Second, encourage substantive debate on the evidence by knowledgeable proponents of all points of view. Science is a collaborative enterprise. It thrives on disagreement and debate. A new idea is not accepted just because it sounds good. It must survive the most rigorous, skeptical scrutiny of the entire scientific community. Third, arguments from authority carry little weight. In science, there are no authorities. At most, there are experts. Even the most brilliant scientists have been wrong. Albert Einstein, Isaac Newton, Charles Darwin, they all made mistakes. Science is built on a process of self-correction. What one person misses, another may find. Your own ideas must be proven in the face of determined, expert criticism. Fourth, spin more than one hypothesis. Don't just fall in love with the first explanation that comes to mind. Think of all the different ways something could be explained, and then think of tests you can use to systematically disprove each of them. The one that survives has the best chance of being right. Fifth, try not to get overly attached to a hypothesis just because it's yours. This is one of the hardest parts of science. You must be willing to abandon your most cherished ideas if the evidence goes against them. Sixth, quantify. If you can attach a number to what you're explaining, you're in a much better position to distinguish between competing ideas. Vague, qualitative statements are open to many interpretations. Seventh, every link in the chain of argument must work. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Eighth, use Occam's razor. When faced with two hypotheses that explain the data equally well, choose the simpler one. And finally, always ask if the hypothesis can be, at least in principle, falsified. If there is no experiment that could ever disprove it, it isn't science. This kit also includes a list of the most common fallacies of logic and rhetoric. Things like ad hominem attacks, where you attack the arguer instead of the argument. Or the appeal to ignorance, the claim that whatever has not been proven false must be true. Or observational selection, where you count the hits and forget the misses, like a gambler who remembers his winning streaks but forgets all the times he lost. Learning to use this kit is not about becoming a cynic. It's about empowerment. It gives you a way to evaluate the claims that bombard us every day, from commercials and politicians to psychics and religious leaders. It's a way to call the bluff of those who only pretend to knowledge. Sagan argues that the consequences of not using these tools can be catastrophic. He takes us back to the great European witch hunts, from the 15th to the 17th centuries. For 300 years, the most advanced nations on Earth were consumed by a terrifying delusion. Hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions, of people, mostly women, were tortured and executed for the impossible crime of witchcraft. How could this happen? It happened because the rules of evidence were thrown out the window. A rumor was enough to get you arrested. If you showed fear, it was proof of a guilty conscience. If you didn't show fear, it was proof that you were a witch, pretending to be innocent. Torture was used to extract confessions. And under torture, people will confess to anything. The more people who confessed, the more proof there was that the devil was at work. It was a self-perpetuating machine of terror, fueled by superstition, fear, and greed. The witch mania is a horrifying example of what happens when a society abandons critical thinking. And it is a stark reminder of why the principles enshrined in the American Constitution and its Bill of Rights are so precious. The right to a fair trial, the prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment, the freedom of speech, the separation of church and state, these were not abstract ideas. They were born out of the painful recognition of human fallibility. They are error-correcting machinery built into the heart of a democracy. This brings us to the most profound connection in the book, the link between science and freedom. Sagan tells the powerful story of Frederick Douglass. Born a slave in the 1820s, he was forbidden by law from learning to read. His master, Hugh Auld, furiously explained why, if you teach that nigger how to read, there would be no keeping him. It would forever unfit him to be a slave. In that moment, Douglass understood the great secret. He understood, as he later wrote, the pathway from slavery to freedom. Literacy, knowledge, the ability to think for yourself, these are the tools of liberation. Douglass taught himself to read, escaped to the North, and became one of the greatest orators and leaders in American history. His life is a testament to the power of knowledge to break chains, both physical and mental. For Sagan, this is the ultimate promise of science. Science is not just a body of knowledge, it is a way of thinking. It is a way of questioning authority. It is a way of freeing ourselves from the prison of our own biases and superstitions. The values of science and the values of democracy are, in many cases, indistinguishable. Both thrive on the free exchange of ideas. Both demand evidence and reasoned argument. Both require us to be brave enough to question what we've been told, and to change our minds when the evidence demands it. In an age of high technology, this connection is more vital than ever. We have arranged a global civilization in which everything, from transportation and communication to medicine and agriculture, depends on science and technology. Yet we have also arranged things so that almost no one understands science and technology. This, Sagan warns, is a prescription for disaster. It is a combustible mixture of ignorance and power that will, sooner or later, blow up in our faces. If we are to navigate the complex challenges of the 21st century, from climate change and pandemics to nuclear proliferation and artificial intelligence, we need a citizenry that is scientifically literate. We need people who can ask the tough questions, who can distinguish between a real expert and a charlatan, who can evaluate evidence and make informed decisions. The journey begins with our children. Sagan laments how the natural curiosity and wonder of a first grader, the child who asks "Why is the moon round?" or "What is a dream?" is so often crushed by the time they reach high school. They learn that there are dumb questions. They learn to memorize facts instead of discovering the life behind those facts. They lose the wonder, and they gain very little skepticism. We must do better. We must cherish those questions. We must teach not just the findings of science, but the method of science. We must give our children the tools to think for themselves. In the end, The Demon-Haunted World is not a book of despair. It is a book of profound hope. It is a love letter to the human species, a celebration of our capacity for wonder and our ability to understand the universe. Sagan doesn't ask us to give up our sense of awe. On the contrary, he shows us that the reality revealed by science is far more awe-inspiring than any pseudoscience could ever be. What is more wondrous, the idea that the planets are pushed around the sky by angels, or the reality that they are held in their orbits by an invisible force that reaches across hundreds of millions of miles, a force described by a few simple, elegant mathematical laws? What is more amazing, the notion that we were created by gods a few thousand years ago, or the fact that every one of us is, as Sagan famously said, made of star stuff, that the atoms in our bodies were forged in the hearts of distant, long-dead stars, billions of years ago? The universe does not seem to have been made for us. It is not, as far as we can tell, concerned with our petty dramas. But by daring to ask the questions, by using the tools of science to explore the cosmos and our place within it, we make our world significant. We infuse the universe with meaning. The path to freedom, for Frederick Douglass, was literacy. For us, living in an age of unprecedented power and peril, the path to a hopeful future is scientific literacy. It is the marriage of our two most human traits, our boundless capacity for wonder, and our courageous embrace of skepticism. It is our candle in the dark. Commentary. As we come to the end of our journey through the demon-haunted world, it's worth taking a moment to reflect on why this book, written decades ago, feels more urgent and relevant today than ever before. We live in an age of information overload. We are bombarded every second with claims and counterclaims, with news and fake news, with voices telling us what to believe, what to fear, and who to hate. The Internet, which was supposed to be a great democratizer of knowledge, has also become a powerful engine for spreading misinformation. The demons of old, superstition, prejudice, credulity, have not vanished. They've just gotten new costumes and faster ways to travel. What Carl Sagan offers us is not a list of facts to memorize, but a way of being in the world. He offers us a defense mechanism against the bamboozles that are constantly being thrown at us. His baloney detection kit is more than just a tool for scientists, it's a tool for citizenship. It's a tool for sanity. The most powerful lesson I take from this book is the profound connection between how we think and the kind of society we build. A society that embraces credulity, that fears new ideas, that silences its critics, is a society on the path to tyranny. But a society that encourages curiosity, that values evidence, that teaches its children how to ask tough questions and how to think for themselves, is a society on the path to freedom. Sagan's message is ultimately one of deep optimism. He believed in us. He believed that ordinary people, armed with the tools of critical thinking, could make wise decisions. He believed that our hunger for wonder did not have to lead us into delusion, but could, instead, lead us to a deeper, more profound appreciation of the real universe. He showed us that science is not a cold, sterile, dehumanizing enterprise. It is a source of spiritual uplift. To recognize our place in an immensity of light years and in the passage of ages, to grasp the intricacy and beauty of life, that soaring feeling, he said, is surely spiritual. So, what can we do, right now, to apply the wisdom of this book? It starts with a simple, personal commitment. The next time you encounter a claim that seems too good to be true, or too terrifying to be ignored, whether it's on social media, on the news, or in a conversation with a friend, pause for a moment. Pull out your mental baloney detection kit. Ask a few simple questions. Who is telling me this? How do they know? Is there another way to explain it? Have they provided any real evidence? And perhaps most importantly, we can pass this legacy on. When a child asks a question, no matter how simple or strange it seems, treat it with the respect it deserves. It is a cry to understand the world. Don't shut it down. Explore it with them. Go to the library, look it up online, do a little experiment. Show them that the world is a discoverable place, and that they have the power to discover it for themselves. In doing so, you are not just teaching them a fact, you are lighting a candle that can illuminate their entire lives. That was a summary of The Demon-Haunted World by Carl Sagan. We've touched on the major themes today, but I'll be completely honest with you, a summary can only ever be a map. The real treasure is in the journey of reading the book yourself. It's in the quiet moments when one of Sagan's beautiful analogies or a powerful historical story strikes you in a way you didn't expect. This summary is designed to give you a sense of the terrain and to help you decide if this is a journey you want to take. If anything we've talked about today has resonated with you, if you feel a stirring of that beautiful mix of wonder and skepticism, then I urge you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that can genuinely strengthen your mind and change the way you see the world. A link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this summary valuable and want to continue exploring the ideas that have shaped our world, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It lets me know that this work is making a difference, and it ensures you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep growing together.